our column this week, Olivia O'Leary looks at the food we eat.
I'm always astonished that doctors who know so much about how drugs affect us will often ignore how our diet affects us. They know in great detail how our bodies will react when we ingest a certain drug. But as to the food we ingest, they show very little interest in it. It's bizarre. Okay, they will warn us to lay off fattening foods if we're putting on weight. And now that animal fats have been shown to increase cholesterol and therefore increase the threat of heart disease, they'll warn some of us off that. But when you think about it, doctors seem to know little enough about the way that particular foods affect our bodies. I'm conscious of it because I suffered for about 6 years from acute abdominal pain. After going the rounds of specialists and expensive procedures and being left no wiser, my brilliant GP reviewed all the evidence and she suggested it might be a food allergy. She was open to me going to an alternative therapist that I trusted. I did, and I was told that wheat and gluten was the problem. After 2 long months of rice cakes, I was about to give up when I suddenly realised that I hadn't been in pain for 2 days. That stretched to a whole week, and I've never looked back since. It was the bread I was eating every day which was making me ill. So shift that to a serious disease like cancer. Enormous strides have been made in cancer research, particularly when it comes to breast cancer. New discoveries like the Herceptin drug, and our own Professor John Crown helped to do clinical trials for that here, have vastly improved the outcome for so many breast cancer sufferers. But what about diet, and whether it makes us more vulnerable to cancer or encourages the spread of cancer when we get it? Professor Jane Plant, CBE of Imperial College London, a geochemist, was told that she had months to live when her cancer returned for the 5th time in 1993. As well as undergoing chemotherapy, she cut down on animal protein, as in meat and fish and eggs, and went on a strict dairy-free diet. In 6 weeks, her tumour was gone, and she was in remission. Of course, she was on chemotherapy, but the diet she adopted was basically an Asian diet. Jane and her husband had worked in China and had noticed how little meat and dairy Chinese people ate. They'd also noticed that the rate of breast cancer among Chinese women living in China was very low. Chinese women living in the US or Hong Kong and on a Western-style diet, however, had the higher Western breast cancer rates. A book called The China Study, written by T. Colin Campbell, Professor of Nutritional Biochemistry at Cornell, and his son T. Thomas Campbell, a physician, draws on international research involving Professor Campbell in China in the 1980s. This concluded that the lower the percentage of animal-based foods that are consumed, the greater the health benefits. Now, an Irish GP in North Dublin, John Kelly, has published a book called Stop Feeding Your Cancer, about what happened when he asked his own patients who were diagnosed with cancer to try a diet free of meat and dairy products. The diet was suggested, of course, as an addition to their cancer treatment and medicines, not in any way as a substitute. Dr. Kelly noticed that those who stuck to the diet fought back better against the disease. In some cases, he says, tumours stopped growing or reduced to the point where they could be safely operated upon. Patients who'd been given a short time to live were still around years later. Only patients with stomach or pancreatic cancer failed to show any improvement when on the diet. And he suggests that this may be in the case of the pancreas, because its own cells, and any cancers therein, he says, have the ability to produce their own animal protein already fully metabolized and ready for use. The stomach has a similar cellular structure, he says. He thinks that if medicines could be developed to counter the enzymes which metabolize protein, trypsin in the case of the pancreas and pepsin in the case of the stomach, we might be much further down the road in the fight against pancreatic and stomach cancer. Dr. Kelly knows that his study is much too small to be regarded in any way as conclusive. Indeed, he started out as a skeptic. It was only when he saw the results with his own patients that he began to believe that diet can make a difference to cancer sufferers. He now wonders why more research hasn't been done to prove or disprove this conclusively. Could it be because of the power of the food industry? Could it be because of the economic fallout from a total cultural change in what we've become to regard as a healthy diet? Or could it be because doctors who want the best for their patients and who get so rightly excited about new drugs regard food as boring stuff beneath their notice? And wouldn't that be a pity?
And that was Olivia O'Leary. It's 29 minutes past 6 o'clock.